Welcome in and Happy New Year to everybody. I'm Artris. This is a great time to have a nice little restart on life for a lot of people. And what better leader to start the new year off than with Enel, the leader that can restart his own life. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna revisit Enel for this video, talk about how to approach Enel into certain matchups for OP09, discuss a little bit about some of the changes you can make to the deck overall. But before we go over all of that, please make sure to drop a like and a sub. Really helps out the channel. Thank you guys so much for all the support. Also, if you'd like to talk about the One Piece card game outside of the YouTube comments, whether it be like market watch type stuff or more kind of the competitive scene for One Piece, make sure to join the Discord. The link for that is in the description below. So starting off with Enel. So with Enel, if you are very unfamiliar with what this leader does, basically it is a mono yellow leader with 4 life. It's not 4 life, it's much more than that. Based off of the leader ability saying opponent's turn once per turn. When your life hits 0, you may add the top card of your deck to your life, then discard 1 card from your hand. So you're able to cycle and stay alive a little bit longer than most leaders would be able to. With this leader ability, you can see a lot of your deck, even though I'd say consistency is one of the weaker pieces of this deck. You are able to cycle enough times if you're playing it correctly and see the things that you need. Just want to say that before we go into the deck list, this is not necessarily the most up-to-date, most complete deck list. I'm still working on a few things here, but this is at least the latest spot where it's landed that I'm pretty happy with. Overall, I'd say that it has a fair shot against most decks in the meta, and if you do see more prominence of other decks, like maybe like Lucci starts to pop up more, or maybe you see Nami start to pop up more as well, there's things you can do to help those matchups, but this one is a little bit more of an all-around matchup spread. Like if you're going against like Blackbeard, this one's better suited for Blackbeard overall, just because of some of the stuff we have in here. If you're going against things like Doflamingo, obviously you already have a great package against that deck, so your core here is pretty strong, and you can handle that deck very much with ease. Shanks is another one that you might be able to handle as long as you draw into the pieces you need. So that's, I think, the big thing there. But point being, this is more of a roundabout deck list. So let's go over the cards really quickly and talk about the choices here. For Flampe, this is something I've been running for a long time. I see people running in at 3. I don't think that's right for Enel. I think a lot of people will like to try to starve you, and so Flampe helps combat that because of the ability being able to draw a card by taking a card from the top or bottom of your life. If you're getting starved, this card is like the anti-starve, which a lot of people like to starve Enel. So Flampe for me is a 4 of. Then we're running 4 Shirahoshi blocker. Now in other metas, you might want to run like max 2, if even run it at all. But because there is such a need to stay alive for as long as possible with Enel, and you're going to go down to even sometimes 0, Shirahoshi will be there to help you when you need it. This is a great card against the Blackbeard matchup, because what ends up happening is when they turn your leader ability off with their 10 drop, then they swing in and you could go to 0, but you don't have to. You can always have this as a blocker to help prevent that from happening. So that's why Shirahoshi is a 4 of in the deck for me. Also, your 2 drop spot is kind of like an awkward thing for you a lot of times. You either have Flampe or maybe that was about it. You don't really have searchers in the deck, and so Shirahoshi at 4 pretty much guarantees you're going to have a play to make as soon as your 2 Dawn is up. So this is a really good card in this meta specifically. Then I'm running 2 of the Graceful Charity Shirahoshi. This one I think is very cuttable. In a lot of like past metas, I would argue that you should never cut this card. I personally just like to have my hand be fixed, or like draw more cards, draw deeper into the deck, see more pieces of stuff that may be helpful for the situation I'm in. I think in this scenario for like this meta, it's not a bad thing to have. It's not a bad trigger to have. You can also run the Bonnie trigger. It's a 3 cost, 4,000 power body that basically does the same thing, except for it draws you 2 and discards 1. This will allow you to be more aggressive with the deck if you want to go that route. But for this more specifically, I think that I just wanted to run a Shirahoshi. The draw 3 trash 2 is a little bit better in my opinion, just because it will allow you to go further into the deck. Then we're running 4 of the 8 cost Katakuri. This is a great answer to a lot of cards in the meta when you're going against Shanks, being able to return a lot of their big bodied 7 drops, their 8 drop Rayleigh, their dragons. That's very important, and this card does it. It's on play, put up to 1 character with a cost of 8 or less on the top or bottom of its owner's life area face up. This is a great answer to Moria as well if you do come across some of those like Lucci decks, or maybe who knows, any other deck that would run Moria. I guess Black Purple Luffy would be also another one that's a little bit more popular right now that this would be maybe solid into if they don't have a Dawn under their leader, getting that leader effect off. But overall, this is a great removal piece. And you kind of want to play a more of a starve game anyway with most of the decks you're going to go against. And so Katakuri helps add to that game plan by adding cards back to their life. And then you can use KO effects from things like Adatsu or Yamato, which we'll get to in a second, that can help clear the board and basically get you to a spot where you have a full board and you can just like go all in. To help with your game plan to stay alive, we have Capone, which is a 2K counter that says trigger up to one of your opponent's leaders or characters cannot attack during this turn. What makes Enel so hard to get through is this card along with the zero cost event. There's been many a time where this has come up in an actual tournament and has helped me win a tournament, helped other Enel players win tournaments. So yeah, Capone for me will usually always be a 4 of. I know that in next set in OP10, they start to cut this down, which there's a reason for it. I'm not exactly sure why off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's a reason that you would not want to run this Capone as a 4 of. Seems crazy right now, but maybe there's a reason for it. Then we're running 4 Yamato. It's a 9 cost, 9,000 power body. On play, KO 20 of your opponent's characters as a cost of equal to or less than the total life of you and your opponent. Then if you have 1 or less life, you may add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to your life area. When I talk about Enel being a starve deck, you're starving because of Yamato. Yamato will allow you to be able to, usually against Doflamingo, stabilize by going back up and healing and then getting rid of a body at the same time, and then you've established a huge swinger. That's really good for that matchup. In other matchups, it also can provide some way to like KO high cost targets. So in matchups where like maybe Bonnie is not wanting to swing into you, sometimes Shanks won't swing into you, Yamato can help punish them for not doing that, because you don't have to always get the maximum value of Yamato. You don't always have to get the heal off for it to be a good play. You can just use your life and their life total to get rid of something. So sometimes people may starve you at times, leave you at 4. You can leave them at 5 and then KO a 9 cost with the Yamato. So that's a really strong play that I think you should consider. And 4 of in this deck makes sense right now. Running 1 7 cost Enel because I think as long as I play Enel, I will always include 1. It's a great card for your Lucci matchup. It's also a really good card against Blackbeard because it's very sticky and hard for them to get rid of it. And so it just kind of sits there and pokes them for 7 every turn. Of course, the only one in the deck, you're not going to see it very often. And personally, I would like to include 3. But I think right now there's other cards I wanted to try or other ratios I wanted to try instead to see if some of these matchups become a little bit more Enel favorite. Then we're running 4 Gadatsu. I think we'll always run 4 Gadatsu. It's a staple of Enel. 5 cost, 6,000 power body. On play, KO up to one of your opponent's characters at the cost of equal to or less than their life. So this is great against Doflamingo because a lot of their bodies are 4 or less. You would keep them at 4 life and then use the Gadatsu to KO anything that they play, which is very, very valuable overall. You're going to want to see multiple of these in those matchups, in your aggro matchups. It's less useful against decks like Shanks, but still, it does have some merit to play, especially at 4, in my opinion. Then we're running 2 Frankie. This is a nice little trigger that draws a card, and then if you have 1 or less life, play this card. It's also just a body you can play on 4 if you so choose. I don't really care as much about this triggering as much as I want like a Capone instead. And I think for my 2Ks overall, I'm running about 10 total with some zero cost events. And I think if I'm going to split it up that way, the least impactful 2K counter is going to be Frankie, in my opinion. I know that a lot of people value the body you get off of it. I don't really care as much. I think that Capone is more impactful. So that's why I have 2 Frankie here instead of like some people I've seen run 4, like 2 Capones or like 2 Flampes. Personally, I would go this route with my 2Ks. I'm running 3 of the Egghead Luffy. This is an activate main. You would place this character in your trash. If your life is at 2 or less, KO 20 of your opponent's cost 4 or less characters, then draw 1 card. This is a pretty solid card against Blackbeard because you can use the activate main effect. It's a decent trigger against Doflamingo, and you can also draw cards with it. I think this might be a cuttable card. This is one that I'm experimenting with the different ratios on. I would say that's a very important card overall for some of your matchups, but is it 100% necessary all the time? That's a good question, and I'm not quite sure. Still going to figure this out as we go along, but right now I'm including it at 3, and it seems to be doing okay. Then, of course, the staple of the deck, another staple we have here is the 10 cost ace from OP07. On play, you may add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life. Then if you have 2 life cards or less, this character gains rush for this turn. You can also just use the effect to gain life if you need to, if you're above the 2 threshold for the rush. You can also just opt to not heal, and then if you're at 2 or less, you can have a rush unit that's a 10,000 power body. This is the strongest card in your deck, and this is a card that I feel like just really makes Enel stick around just ever so slightly. If we didn't have a rush unit that heals, I think Enel would not nearly be as strong. And of course, I don't know if you guys have seen the spoilers that are coming out of the East right now for the EBO2 set. It looks like Enel is going to be getting some more top end that also just combats what like Blackbeard wants to do. Yeah, Enel is going to be very, very strong and very sticky as far as a deck goes in future sets. So maybe now is a good time to get some practice on it. Then we have 4 Nami, Egghead Nami from OP08. On play, you may trash 1 card with a trigger from your hand and KO up to one of your opponent's characters at the cost of 5 or less. Then if you have 3 or less cards in your hand, draw a card. I think that this is a very powerful card because it just flat out doesn't have to deal with your opponent's life or your life totals. It can just get rid of a 5 cost. And that has always been one of the hardest things for Enel to deal with in like the mid game. Is like, oh, I should starve them, and if I starve them too much, I'm not making game progress. But my Gidatsu is at least online for their 5 costs. This Nami, you don't have to worry about being punished by swinging into your opponent if you so choose, because this Nami will allow you to just get rid of a 5 cost no matter what. Great against Black Yellow Luffy too, because all of their stuff is 5 cost. Of course, they don't need to be playing Sabo for this to be in effect, but if they don't, then you can punish them for that. So this Nami is a great card, great addition to the deck, 4 up for me, and you're running a fair amount of triggers as well that you can easily pitch to be able to get this effect. The Shirahoshi, the Graceful Charity, Shirahoshi is one of these. And then the other one I consider a nice little trigger fodder is the Nico Robin from OP09, really the only new addition to the deck that I've added. This is a 6 cost 6,000 power body. On play, if your opponent has 3 or more life cards, trash up to one of the top cards of your opponent's life. If you're expecting a lot of Nami in your meta, which is a direct counter to this deck, this Robin is very strong because you can actually handle that matchup a lot more safely. Otherwise, it's a good play to have on 6. 6 is kind of like an awkward turn for you. You have a lot of 5 drops, so you have 5 drops you can play and then use one Dawn, or you can also have this Nico Robin to test out with. I really do enjoy it. I don't know if I want to keep it in the deck for now, but I feel like there's times where it has come in pretty clutch. It helps with the starve strategy at least, so there's a part of me that wants to actually increase this, and especially because the more that you have in the deck, the more chances you get to see it, and you get more play options, and you kind of get to see how it plays out overall. So yeah, might want to increase this just to see how it does, but 2 has been kind of a good spot for me for now. Then the other really core card to this deck is Raigo, which is a 6 cost event that just says KO up to one of your opponent's characters, doesn't matter the cost, but you have to trash the top of your life cards so that your life total becomes 1. Well, because Enel typically sticks around at 1, he is going to be using this like left and right. If you're drawing it, of course, that's the big issue here. This card helps your Shanks matchup. This card helps your Blackbeard matchup. It helps every matchup out there. However, you have to draw it, so be very careful because it can come out of life, and the life trigger is a Yamato effect basically without the heal. So obviously based on the situation, you use the trigger effect, do you keep it in hand? More times than not, I will keep it in hand unless I really feel like it's an impactful thing to come out of life for. So in the Doflamingo matchup, you're always going to use this out of life. And then we're running 1 200 million volt Amaru card from OP05 that says up to one of your leaders or characters gains a 3,000 power. I was about to say 1,000, gains 3,000 power for this turn. Then if you have 1 card in your life or less, rest up to one of your opponent's characters at the cost of 4 or less. And the trigger is basically the 0 cost event. You trash 2 cards from your hand and add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life. So 2 cards from your hand instead of 1 as opposed to the 0 cost event. That's besides the point. The really important thing here is that this is a nice little answer to Blackbeard throwing down, I don't know, what's a 4 cost of that you can't be KO'd by effects that you're going to have to swing into? Yeah, you're right. Burgess, that's the card that this is mostly played for. You might want to increase it if you see a lot of Blackbeards in your area. The other thing here is it's got a nice little utility just to be able to rest a blocker if you're trying to go for game. People often forget about this card. This is a much needed staple for Enel's deck list in OP05, being able to bypass like Borsalinos or Rebecca's. I think Rebecca came out in OP05 if I'm not mistaken. Might have been OPO6. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head, but I remember just being able to rest blockers with this against like Sakazuki was very important overall. And then to round it up, we're running 3 of the 0 cost events. You're the one who should disappear. So it has the effect of counter event. You may trash a card from your hand and then this card, and then you gain plus 3,000 power for the battle for a leader or character. The trigger is the most important thing here. If you have 0 life cards, put the top card of your deck onto your life pile, then trash 1 card from your hand. This often will be like the last life in Enel, and so you get a free heal plus your leader ability, so you go back up to 2. Very important here. I'm not running it at 4, which I usually do because I wanted to cut it for like the Amaru. Amaru has a similar effect in life, but Amaru is also important for the activate main, so that's why we're testing it out at 3 to 1. Seems to be going over all right so far. Before we go into the games though, I do want to point out a couple of cards that I think might be worth mentioning that I have seen some people kind of test out with. Not necessarily a huge fan of this card, but it does have some value to be played on the 4 Dawn turn, which is one of the turns that's kind of like awkward for you because your early game is not really great. So an opponent might put something down on 3, and then you throw this Kuzan down on 4 and says, you may place one of your opponent's cost 3 or lower characters onto the top or bottom of their life face up. Your opponent trashes 1 card from their hand. This is a very interesting card. It's nice to help with the starve strategy. You're clearing a body from the board. You are keeping them at a high life total. And then on top of that, they have to discard a card from hand. I really do like the idea of this card. There's a lot of value behind this. I just don't really necessarily think that it is the strongest card to add to the deck at the moment. It's one that I've tested out with against like Nami decks, very strong, because you can remove things and then they have to trash a card. So once again, if you have a lot of Namis in the meta or in your locals, this could be a really good card to run. I know that I Am God is one that, or I guess it's like Call Me Kami, or did somebody say Kami? Something along those lines. The event from EBO1, if you're running into more Luchis in your meta, or a lot of Blackbeards, for instance, you can run more of these and then also run more of the 7 cost Enel. That's Yamato, 7 cost Enel, to kind of be able to just lead a lot of aggression against those decks with units that can't be KO'd or that can be cheated out from the trash for only 4. And the other thing with this card is that it has a trigger that's very similar to, I believe, Bonnie. So it's draw 2, trash 1. So if it is a card that comes from life and you don't need it, you can always just use it to dig further into the deck. So there's a couple of texts there that you might want to add in. As far as the other thing that I would consider running in Enel, but it's not necessary, I did find it to be useful, but also kind of weird, is Dureshi. So this is a 3 cost event from OPO9 that says, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal up to 2 cards with triggers other than Dureshi, and add them to your hand. Then return the rest to the bottom of your deck in any order. The trigger is draw a card. The problem here is that if you use this, you are basically saying, I am opting to get rid of the top 5 top end pieces that I could potentially be drawing into in this game to find triggers, which could be useful, right? Maybe you need to find the Raigo, the Dureshi, guarantee to at least look at the top 5 to see if there's a Raigo there for you to grab. There's also a card that's great for card advantage, but deck space is a little bit tight here. But I'm just throwing these out there for you guys to consider for your Enel deck list overall. With that being said, though, I think that this list that I've got has got pretty good potential to just do solidly well against most of the meta. So let's take it into the sim and see how it does. All right, we're going to go against Blackbeard here, which is one of our tougher matchups in OPO9, simply due to the fact that Blackbeard, his ability to be able to pitch a card from hand to turn your opponent's on-play abilities off for an entire turn is really impactful against us. Most of our characters have on-play abilities, and so it turns a lot of our characters into vanillas. All of the healers that we have are based off of on-play, so that means that we can't heal up as easily. So it's a tough matchup overall, to say that. So they start off with the Luffy, which is a searcher for them. Looks at the top 5 for Blackbeard Pirates, which is pretty much their entire deck. And this is really annoying for us because it means we have to attack into them. However, the strategy here against Blackbeard is, I believe, you should just starve them because of the fact that they will usually be using their leader ability, plus also playing a card down. If you're able to starve them out and survive long enough, then overall you should be okay. Here, we're just going to swing 6 at it and establish the Shirahoshi blocker because this card really helps the matchup. As I said in the intro, if you get to 0 or you get to 1 and they use their 10 drop to turn off your leader ability, which means you can't heal for that turn, then this card will be a nice little buffer to make sure you can at least stay alive, because Shirahoshi being KO'd will then heal you, which Teach does not really want to help with you being able to heal yourself. So they play This Is My Age. Look at the top 3 cards. Grab a Blackbeard Pirate, which is the Van Augur card, which is a, you'll hover over it in a second, but it's a 5-cost, 6,000 power body that activate main, rest the character, and then give a card -3. And then on KO, it's a draw card. So we're going to Nico Robin off the life trigger. This trigger is really not good in this deck. There's not really much you could play here, but it's a good card to have if we're able to get our on play off. But I think what's good here is we can also establish a Luffy and be able to activate main whenever we'd like, and also swing with this in the meantime. If we decide to swing into bodies, of course. The whole thing here is we're just not swinging into life. We're going to have them play out characters from hand and then use their leader ability to basically just waste it for that turn. As soon as they use their leader ability, turn off our on-play abilities, you can just play things out that you don't necessarily need to heal off of, so that by the time it gets to really late game, your on-play abilities will likely be able to be activated because they've either run out of cards or they've decided it's not as important to activate them at that moment. So hold on to the Yamatos when you can. Hold on to the aces when you can. Same thing with the Katakuris. Looks like they're going to try to target our Luffy here. So they are going with the 2k counter that -1, or -2 rather. And then they play Liberation to get rid of our Luffy. Yeah, it is what it is. If they decide to swing here, we're taking this as an L. You'll take any hits that you can, unless, of course, the 10-drop is on the field and they've used that ability. We get another Shirahoshi blocker, which is great for us because we can just do the same thing again. We can play out either a 7-cost Enel, or we can go Luffy into Shirahoshi. I think I'd rather establish the 7-cost, though, because it's going to be harder for them to get rid of. As you saw that they just got rid of the Luffy pretty easily. Pretty common card combination that they have. So let's establish the Enel, and then from there, we should just let this stick. We're only really swinging unless they present us bodies to swing into, right? We're just staying upright. They can only attack into us. If they want, they can try to get rid of this Enel, and I will gladly use the Enel ability to make sure it stays on the field. Burgess is a really good... Burgess is going to be a real problem for us, actually. If we don't find a way to rest it with the Amaru, then it's going to be, yeah, like I said, problematic overall. It just gets stronger as the game goes on, and it's one that we cannot KO with effects. So, one-legged soldier to -2 to the Shirahoshi, and they're just going to dock Q pop it, give me a heal, just get it out of the way, I assume. So this next turn, if we are able to use our on-play ability, I think it's probably worth it to play out the Nico Robin. If not, then we just go Shirahoshi Luffy. It looks like they use their leader ability to black hole us, so that we can only really play the Shirahoshi Luffy, which I just mentioned. And to be honest, I'm not sure if I want to get rid of this dock Q just yet. I could swing into it, but I could also Luffy ability to KO it. So we'll see what we do. And the first 10 drop is here, so we are probably going to be chained with these for maybe at least another turn or two. But the good news here is that if they swing like they're doing right now, then we are able to probably clear these bodies because they only have 2 cards in hand. We have to... Well, they should have swung right there, to be honest, because I would have given them a card, but I think that's fine. Drawing into the Raigo here is really important for us because now we can just clear this Teach. Because our 7-cost has been stunned, we're just going to swing 10 into this Burgess, and then I might actually just use the Luffy ability to pop the dock Q. I don't know if I want to give him a card. I think it's okay in this scenario to do so, but also I don't want them to swing into me. I don't know. It's a tough one. I'm giving them the option here, though, because I'm not exactly sure if that, I could have used it to get rid of the dock Q. Of course, they follow up with another Teach here. Not very surprising. If we draw another Raigo, that's going to be good. I think they should just swing with their leader here, because that means they're going to have to get rid of a card. They didn't do it last turn, but maybe they do it this turn. They might also be afraid of a trigger, but there's no trigger they should really be scared of. Yeah, there you go. That's fine. Because if I take this and then they use their nullify, or not their nullify, their black hole to where I can't heal, which they just did anyway, then I am sit and duck for this next turn. So they could Liberation the Shirahoshi, and then Teach just goes all the way in, which is pause. Sounds weird. So we just play out the Frankie here because we don't really have anything else better to do, to be quite honest. It's kind of an awkward turn for us. because I want to hold onto my Yamato for when they don't have any cards left in hand, and then I can start using my on-play abilities to heal back up. So we're just going to stall for a second and see if they do anything that is worth maybe pressuring them for, but I really don't see, yeah. Gosh, 3 teaches in a row. I mean, to be fair, I'm very impressed here because I've been starving them and they've drawn into them. I don't think they've had too many searches. We have to use our Shirahoshi counter here. And this is one where we definitely need to block, because if we don't block and they decide to black hole us, we could be in trouble. I think I should block. Yeah, this is easy block. Stay at 1 health, so we're not going to be in trouble of dying next turn. But they black hole anyway. Interesting. So, I mean, this is very free for us. We just swing lead into the teach. I don't know if that was the right move, but either way, I would probably be swinging into this teach regardless. I think swinging the teach on their part was fine, but the fact that they only have 1 card in hand and then they got rid of it kind of is weird. I don't know if I want to attack anymore. I think we're okay to maybe use the ability finally to draw something and then pass the turn from there. I kind of just want to see what else I can get. I don't care about giving them a card. It's not like the worst thing in the world, but I also just didn't really want to swing either. So this next turn, easy swing into the Luffy. It looks like they've ran out of at least 10 drops. They hit 3 in a row there, so kind of good on their part. They grab a This Is My Age. They're just looking. They're probably just looking for 10 drops, but at this point, they're in a lot of trouble. They are in a lot of trouble. If we get a Raigo, I would probably say that's GG. If they swing with the Teach, that's also probably GG. Very awkward here. They might be threatening 12-12, which could be a problem. I think we just get rid of a Gadatsu because we don't really need it. 12-12. I actually have to counter out of this one because they might be cheeky and give us where we can't heal. They might do Black Hole, and they decide not to do Black Hole, which is good for us because that means that we can swing. I probably should have just swung a leader there instead, but that's okay. We're going to swing. We don't have to swing as big as I'm counting, but at least 14 into 12. Maybe I should have done it the other way, swing the 7 cost into the Lafitte, or swing the leader into the Lafitte and then Enel, and maybe play something else out. We could have played out maybe a Nami just to have a body, but it doesn't matter. I'm not going to be swinging with the Nami anyway. This next turn, I'm just going to try to heal up with the Yamato, see what I can do. They Liberation the Frankie. I would have probably swung into the Frankie, but I guess it doesn't really matter. Oh, now we can actually use the Yamato effect because they have 0 cards in hand. They're unable to heal back up, and then let's just pass. Let's heal back up and start establishing a board, and hopefully we can get a big enough board before they can start putting things on their side of the field as well. But this is also really awkward for them because they're at 5 life, 1 card in hand. They don't really have much to do. They could play a character out and then not use their leader ability, but they kind of just want me to swing into them, and I'm not going to. So they pitch the finger gun because it really doesn't have any use. They're just trying to make sure I don't have my on-play abilities, and that's fine. I'll play out a Katakuri, vanilla Katakuri. If we don't need to heal anything there, we're just going to establish bodies once per turn. And if they continue to try to use their leader effect, it's basically GG until I start swinging. And if they continue to do this, then it's my leader ability here can activate. I can cycle a card. And they decide to probably not use Black Hole, I might imagine. Oh, they decide to use it again. 2 finger guns in a row. This is spelling GG at this point. And I think they saw that because it's just the same cycle until I build enough bodies to swing into all 5 of their life. So that's kind of how you have to do it. You just have to starve Blackbeard out and then just kind of play the long game if you can. All right, queuing up against a Shanks. This is also another tough matchup. I think it is more Shanks favored, and I'm playing Shanks this set, by the way. I feel like Shanks can just produce higher value bodies against Enel. And of course, if Enel sees Raigo 4 times in a row, usually Enel can pull ahead, but they have to see that. And with a deck that doesn't have a way to get it other than if you're playing Dareshi, then it's going to be difficult for Enel to do. So we start off with a pretty strong start with the Flampe into the Shirahoshi blocker. Here they just played a Sanji because they know we're trying to starve them, and the Sanji is going to help unplug their life. But the good news is we have a Nami to be able to play out to get rid of the Sanji. I'll toss the Nico Robin here because I'm holding onto this Raigo for dear life. If they drop a 10 drop against us, we have an immediate answer, and it's very important to be able to answer a 10 drop Shanks as soon as you can, because if you are unable to do that and they drop a second one, it pretty much is game over at that point. Being able to get rid of one 10 cost requires them to have another one, and sometimes Shanks also comes into the same problem as Enel, where they don't always draw into what they need when they need it, and if they don't have 10 drops consecutively, then you're probably going to at least pull ahead in those matchups. The Enel here is not really great, but it's a body to play in case we need to contest the board just a little bit. And I needed something to play anyway, so might as well get this out onto the field. It's insane that I have seen this card twice now. I have it as a one of in my deck, and I've seen it in the Blackbeard matchup, saw it in this matchup, so pretty nice from us. Here's a little bit awkward. We don't really have a great way to get rid of this Newgate other than just swinging really big into it, which we could attempt to, but they're also, they could potentially counter out of this because they are like showing that they might have good guard point. They let it go though. I don't think it's worth contesting on their spot, but who knows. This next turn, I'm imagining a 10 drop comes down here. It's a perfect time to do it, and if that's the case, then I could be in trouble. It's another Newgate, though, so that's a little less scary. They're going to go ahead and just pop the Shirahoshi because you don't really care about healing me. You just want the blocker out of the way so that you can at least get some way to chump like my cards out of hand or whatever it may be. And I would imagine they might just go really hard at the Enel here. They could go, they could go like 10 into 7. They might also just go like 7 into, they just choose not to swing at all. I don't think that's the right call. Maybe it was a misclick, but I don't know if it's the right call here. I'm going to go ahead and just like draw or use the Flampe to take a life, draw. And I think here I just need to get rid of this Newgate. So I'm going to go ahead and use the one Raigo I have and hope that I don't get instantly punished by that because I didn't feel comfortable swinging into them. The fact that they left up 3 kind of means they might have something. I'm respecting the fact that they might have something there. It might not have been a misplay. I think swinging the ace, maybe they wanted to keep it up. Who knows? It's hard to tell sometimes what opponents might be thinking. I don't know what's in their hand, and maybe what they did was the right choice. So we're going to take this hit, and when you swing 5 on 10 as Shanks, it usually means you have the 10 drop coming down. So we at least need to counter out of one of these, and we can use the Shirahoshi in case it is the 10 drop. And if it is the 10 drop, then we have a Raigo to answer it. They might have been playing that Newgate on the 10 drop turn or on the 10 dawn turn as a way to maybe bait out something from me instead of playing out the 10 drop altogether. But more often than not, if I'm playing Shanks, I'm going to be dropping the 10 cost Shanks on curve. They have quite a lot of cards in hand as well, and still a lot of life. So our starving isn't necessarily helping. Maybe they're just trying to establish a board. Maybe they're not running into 10 drop stuff. But once again, leaving 3 dawn up here is pretty interesting. So go ahead and swing 6 into 4. We used the Yamato effect to KO the ace, and they opted to shrink it down instead. 6 into 4. They'll counter out using leader ability plus a 2K. And then this, it's not even a, they weren't even bluffing. They just don't have anything. They just let it go. If I had something, I'd probably keep that ace alive at that point, because ace is pretty solid of a card against me as well, because it's hard for me to get rid of. This Ben Beckman, very solid play against the Shirahoshi we had, because it just trashes the Shirahoshi and I don't get to heal off of it. They swing Ben into Enel, and I get a counter, or they get a counter out of hand, and so then they use Building Snake to -3 it. I think I'm just going to let this go. It's not worth keeping it on the field at this point, and this is why I think Enel is kind of the 7 cost Enel is a bad card against Shanks, because they can like shrink it down and then just abuse it. They want to leave me at 2, totally fine. We're going to put that dragon into life and then reestablish another Shirahoshi blocker, because I definitely think I need it. And while we're at it, let's see if we can get a card out of hand from them. Maybe they're bricked up. Maybe they give us a 2K. They use leader ability plus 2K. And looks like they're just bricked up. Okay, maybe they just have so many big bodies that they're waiting to throw those down. Maybe they're waiting to like bait out a Raigo. I don't know. But the fact that they let that go pretty easily is nice for us. Can't complain. Easy block. They have the 10 drop here, and we have the answer. I don't even care if I have to trash one of my life to get rid of it. I'm going to do so and immediately just pass the turn. We ended up trashing a Shirahoshi blocker, which is not the worst thing in the world. If we trashed another Raigo, I would have been a little bit upset, to be quite honest, because Those things are so handy in this matchup. So they're going to play Rayleigh, which we have enough characters on board for them to be able to draw 2 and then trash 1. And they followed up with the Yasop. Kind of a weak play overall because we can just pop the Yasop with the Yamato, pass back to them. 2 5-drops I'm not really scared of as Enel. More scared of like the consecutive 10 drops here. So even though we are kind of staying alive, we are buying them time as well to search deeper into the deck to find those big bodies that are going to be difficult for us to deal with. Here, I think if I was Shanks, I'd probably, that's fine as well. Leave me at 2 and then put the Roger down. They might be trying to build up a board. If you notice they didn't swing with anything there, that's totally fine. We don't really have any good options, so I'm going to go ahead and just clear some of their board because it looks like they're trying to establish a board of their own. So we'll go ahead and play just a Gadatsu and then just pass, which is not the best, like it's not the most opportune or the best way to play that out because maybe you want to be able to swing into them. You have 5 Dawn that you're not using here, but I'm not ready to swing into their bodies quite yet, so... Yep, looks like they're just trying to build a board. So if they're going to go build a board, go wide, then we have to at least add more life to make up for that. So the ace here, just being able to heal and go back up to 3 is really powerful. Our board is full, so we have to start doing something with it soon. Otherwise, it's kind of just awkward. They swing in, we're going to take that. The Amaru doesn't really do much unless they're playing Lucky Roo, but I don't think you'd ever want to play Lucky Roo in this matchup. So let's go ahead and heal up again, do the same play that we did last turn, and bait out a counter here. So we're going to go and swing the Gadatsu because we're going to need to replace one of these characters to be able to heal up, and Gadatsu at least gets a swing out. They do have Lucky Roo, they just use it as a counter. So I guess they're wanting to stay really healthy, which I don't understand. It's kind of out of this one because we could potentially have a lot of hits coming in. Okay, sure. We'll swing 5, see if they give us a life, or maybe they just use leader ability. Use leader ability. I think now we can swing with the Katakuri because we're going to probably replace it with this Yamato and KO the Yasop so that we stay at a higher life total, but also get rid of a body on the field. Of course, a 7 is easier for them to take. Let's see what they do. No trigger. Could have been a Red Hawk. I was going to say Red Rock. Red Hawk. We'll go ahead and get rid of the Yasop there. With the Yamato, don't need to heal. We're already at 3. And then this next turn, we can really pressure them hard. What we can do is we can swing with every body that we have and say, hey, I'm at 3 life. Can you end the game this turn? What would they play that could be pretty rough for us? Maybe like a Rayleigh. Okay, maybe I shouldn't speak so soon. Rayleigh is pretty good here because it means we can't really pressure them super hard, but we do have a lot of Dawn that we can swing into them with. So let's just go and start stacking this Dawn on stuff. Swinging 6s into Shanks is really annoying for Shanks because they have to use leader ability plus a 1k or a 2k straight up. And because this is probably the smallest attack coming their way this turn, I feel like they should just go ahead and use leader ability plus 1k. My own stupidity. I didn't even see the 2 up right there. That's really dumb on my part. The Yamato got KO'd by the Red Hawk because it was at 5 because of the Rayleigh, and then they used leader ability to get it to 4, and then the Red Hawk, of course, KO's a 4 cost. That's really stupid. Wow. I play a lot of Shanks too, and I should have seen that coming. I didn't even see the 2 up there. Oh well, it happens. Misplays. We're just going to swing really hard here and get them to 0, if that's the case. And this, once again, will require them to push for lethal this next turn, because if they throw down a blocker, they only have like 2 types of blockers. They have Rayleigh, which is a 5 cost, and they have Lucky Roo, which is a 4 cost. If they have the Rayleigh, then that sucks, but we do have a Nami to get rid of it and then swing in really heavily. But this signifies that they're trying to at least push for lethal. They realize they're in trouble here. They can't necessarily clear the board as easily. So they're just going to have to push in. And we do get a very nice Capone trigger right there off the life to be able to stop the Roger from attacking. Because ideally for them, this would be a... Yeah, I was going to say another Rusher coming down. Swinging 8 here, we are able to counter out of this pretty easily. But we only need to counter out of 1 more of these attacks. We can actually just take the Shanks attack as well, because we have enough counter in hand to be able to survive here. So let's go ahead and just take the 10 and show them that we have the counter. Close out the game by, I don't know if baiting them is the right word here, but forcing them rather to go for game, because there's no way they're clearing that board. All right, GG there. We got a little bit lucky that they didn't see anything on curve, but sometimes that's part of Shanks. They just don't see what they need, especially with the Red Hawk version. It's a little inconsistent at times. All right, Black Yellow Luffy. I don't like this hand. No action at all. We're going to mulligan straight into a much better hand here. We have Katakuri to put things back into their life. We have a 10-cost Ace to really apply some pressure and heal back up. We have the Nami to be able to get rid of any of the bodies like the Fist Luffy. I don't know what you call it. Fist Luffy, I guess. Drawing into a Flampe to be able to get our life totals lower so that we could use the Raigo as a backup plan if we need to. And then getting a Shirahoshi. This card is so good in this matchup as well because having just a free block whatever is incredibly important. They don't really have ways of getting rid of the Shirahoshi without healing me, which is exactly what we want there. Ivankov to come down, not the strongest Ivankov play, but it also helps them get to their leader ability quicker, but we are able to get the Shirahoshi Graceful Charity off the top. Love to see it. And I think it's fine to keep all of these big bricks because these bricks are definitely going to help keep us alive here. I think I just use the Nami. This might be a misplay, but just establish something, get rid of the blocker, I think is okay. Maybe holding the Nami. Yeah, I don't know if Kuzan's necessarily a huge punishment here, but I would have liked to keep the Nami for something more impactful. We could use the Luffy trigger, but I think it's better to just play the Luffy next turn because we're going to be on 7. Yeah, and then we can get a card draw off of it instead of just KOing it. We KO it and get a card draw and then throw out the Shirahoshi. And yeah, we got punished for having the Nami come out early, but we were able to pivot at least a little bit easier here, establish a second Shirahoshi, and now we are able to safely get into our late game by playing Katakuris consecutively. Aces are pretty good here. Yamato's not good overall into this matchup. Yamato's mostly going to be like a, oh crap, I'm about to die, I need to heal back up character, as opposed to getting rid of anything on the board because Luffy's life totals are always going to be very low. A Value Moria is actually very impactful here. The fact that they played this out to get a Kuzan back and then a Luffy, a baby Luffy, that's a little bit less impactful, but the Kuzan is the big thing here. So we're going to take the 5 and see what we can get. We get a nice little trigger, but we can't use it because we don't have a trigger to discard for the Nami effect. Very unfortunate because that would have been a great trigger to have, but it's okay. We can stay alive for a turn. I think here we're basically conceding the fact that we won't be able to answer this Kuzan. We want to get rid of this Moria. The Moria is a bigger threat, even though the Kuzan will be able to get rid of our Katakuri. They're very cheeky here, countering out to keep this baby Luffy alive. I'm very surprised, but I guess it works out for them. We're going to go ahead and just say, okay, this Luffy that's on the field, it's just going to stick there. And same with the Kuzan, but I'd rather them have two smaller, I say smaller bodies there, because obviously Luffy can pump himself up. I'd rather just deal with those two smaller bodies than have to deal with this Moria. Unfortunate, but it is what it is. This could be a really good turn if they get another Fist Luffy off of this Hiyori and then use the Fist Luffy to get the Moria off. But this is also a pretty good play too because they can just swing the Kuzan, swing 5 into me, reduce the Katakuri by 4, and then use the Luffy activate main ability to KO it and then draw a card. Very strong play. Their leader's at 7. They might just swing really big here with like a 7. Oh, they're going to go, even, I guess, a little bit wider. This is awkward because I can counter, but I think I probably should because they now have 4 attacks coming my way. This is also, if they decide to go 5, I can counter out, but 7 we'll take. We'll just see what we get from a trigger. No trigger here. I think it's, like I said, Yamato's kind of just like whatever in these situations. It's better to just pitch the Yamato. Katakuri is so much more important for these matchups. Take this. Oh, what a trigger. Now we can keep a Shirahoshi alive, and that's really nice for us. We're going to pressure the Garp. We're just going to clear the board because they're showing that they'd like to swing with it, so might as well. We'll go 5 into 5. They'll counter out of this one for sure, but then we can just follow up with the ace and guarantee that this thing goes down. Their board is now clear. We have a big 10 drop, and we also have 1 to follow it up with. So I think we're in a pretty good spot here. We played it pretty soundly. I think for them, what they need to do is be able to take this Moria, whether it be a 2K counter that they have to use to do it, or maybe they have a Fist Luffy to be able to rip that off as well. Either way, it's not going to be an optimal turn for them, and I think that this is fine. I think we've definitely turned it around for sure. It was kind of a little bit rough there for a second with the Kuzan coming back with the Value Moria. This is also a very solid play. The Fist Luffy, and now they can at least be a 7k leader and have 1 life. They just need to play out a Sabo and they should be pretty solid here. So they play out the Sabo and they have a Luffy from life. Yeah, this is perfect for them. This is a really good play from them as well. Now they can start chaining Morias here on after if we're unable to crack through. But I think we should be fine. I think we just let this one go. The Nami's not going to be swinging anymore. Like, Nami, if they stay at 7 or 9, Nami is just useless. Sorry, Nami. So we're going to swing a flat 10 into 7. This is going to be 2 2Ks, or maybe they just block, or maybe they just let it go. Maybe it doesn't matter to them as much. It could be a buffer. This one they might want to block instead of getting cards out of their hand, because Luffy doesn't want to give cards out of hand. So far so good. I think we might be able to turn this around overall. It looks like we have 2 big 10 cost bodies on the board. The best play they could do this turn is play out a Moria, be a 9k leader, and maybe have a blocker or 2, if that. I'm not sure if they have 2 baby Sabos in the trash, but I guess we'll see in a second what their best play here is. Well, an easy start off with 2 on the leader. Let's see what they have here. They have a Sabo, and what else could they be playing? Double Sabo would be really annoying because it means that they could at least block 2 of these ace attacks. But that means we'd have to math it correctly if that's the case. So at least one of these aces, or sorry, one of the Sabos being there is not nearly as a problem for me, I don't think. Them being down to 4 in hand into this next turn, we could probably crack through. I think this is an easy counter out there. They decided to keep me at 2. I think that's fine. Let's go ahead and just swing 11 because we are at 2. We don't need to heal anything. We don't need to put anything in life. If we put anything in life, then it's a problem. So yeah, it looks like even if they had, they might have miscountered there, but they didn't have enough is the point. They have to give me a 2 and a 1, then use the block on the other 11 from the ace, and then put the rest on the leader and swing 12. So yeah, we had it from there. I think we played it pretty soundly. They played it pretty well, but this is a 50-50 overall. So Enel versus Dofi, this is definitely favored for Enel, and one of the reasons why you might even want to play Enel in the OP09 meta, because Dofi is the best deck in the format, and this counters it pretty hardly. So, or hardly, I don't know. It counters it very hard is what I'm trying to get my point across here. So this hand is actually very strong for us. It has a Gidatsu, it has a Nami, and now we drew into the Yamato. So we are looking good. We just have to give them no incentive to putting us. It's actually one of the ways that they can actually pull this match back into their favor if they are able to putting us when we have a pretty big hand. So we either need to use our Shirahoshi blocker here, if we're able to, maybe, or we could take it because we are at 5. We're not necessarily in trouble of getting pudding yet, because 6 is not necessarily a strong pudding hand for most people that play pudding. We have the Gidatsu here, which is going to be the best play we can make. We can go 5 into 5. They'll give us a counter more than likely, keep this Jinbei alive, and then we'll play the Gidatsu to KO the Weevil, and we're going to keep them at 4 life. I will always swing 1 against Doflamingo to get them to 4, and then keep them at 4 until I can start establishing a bigger board to start pushing for lethal. This turn, they might play out Boa. Usually the best play that they can make is like any Jinbei kind of play. So it could be Jinbei Boa, swing with their leader, use leader ability, bring a body out. Yeah, it could be problematic here. I don't know if I want to swing with the Jinbei if I'm on their point of view. This could be, honestly, it could be a pudding. If we take this, they might have a pudding ready for us because they have 4 open here. They swung very interestingly. So makes sense though. Right sequencing overall. We don't need this Raigo, so let's go ahead and just pitch it to play the Nami out. We're at 5 in hand, so they do not want putting us for sure. And we're just getting rid of the board as much as possible. We're just trying to keep it as steady and stabilized for us as we can. I think here, because we have multiple Namis, we're pretty safe in staying alive for a little while. We also have Yamatos to back it up, but Yamato's best against Dofi when you're able to get the full effect off. Being able to heal is, I think, the most important here. Play a Law to probably just bounce like a couple of the Perona only. If I were them, I actually might just bounce the Law back to hand too, because now I can swing into the Law and it gives me a body to swing into, but I guess they might not care. Because we have 3 Yamatos, I'm just using this one to just go ahead and KO a unit because I know I can get rid of the Law. Maybe a little misplay by me by swinging just the Nami. I probably should have just swung leader first because that way they don't have a body to swing into, but I guess it's a good way that they just swung a body into my body. So now I can swing into this Jinbei. Oh, well, Actually, that's a pretty smart play. I've made that play before as Dofi, where you use the Jozu to bounce a body that you swung with so that I can't swing into it, I can't KO it. It's kind of awkward here. Let's just give him the Gadatsu because I could be putting at any point in time. I don't want that to happen. So just a Jinbei. It's actually a very good cycle that they had. They swung with that Jinbei, they played out Jozu, bounced the Jinbei back, played the Jinbei again, got the law going. Pretty solid play, but we have a better one ourselves. I think the Flampe to unclog us and then heal back up with the Yamato and KO something in the process is very nice there. And then we can just continue to do something along those lines with the second Yamato. We can also put things into life if we need to. Katakuris, although I don't necessarily want to have them be at a higher life total. Maybe just using the Katakuri to sustain ourselves is fine. They play out this law again, which this law is good maybe like one time if you have like a teach established, so you can like use it multiple times in a single turn and take like 3 cards out of my hand. But once a turn is not necessarily something I condone. We have a red rock coming this next turn, which is very good information for us because that means we probably should start swinging with these bodies so we get value out of them. Otherwise, it just sits there. I think we just use a Yamato and then start swinging with the other ones. I think that's probably our best bet here. Let's swing 6. They take this, we can still play the Yamato and heal up and also KO the Jinbei. I think that's our main target here is the Jinbei. And then I don't think they're going to counter out of 9s, to be quite honest. They take that one, very surprising. So go ahead and use our Yamatos here just to get rid of or start pressuring life because we know that the red rock is coming. So one of these is going to go. And I don't think they're going to put a lot of Dawn on the Jozu and swing into another one. And if they do, they should be not doing that. I don't think is the best play. So red rock is to be expected. In these scenarios, I guess it doesn't technically matter, but always do the standing one just as a safety. Because like say, look at my hand, I have 6 in hand. What if they're all bricks, right? And then you go like 9 into the Yamato and then you use the teach ability and put 2 onto Jozu and it gets a card out of my hand, and then maybe the rest are bricks, and the Jozu gets it through. I don't know. That's a far-fetched way to think. Probably the wrong way to think, but always do the standing one, is my point. Here, though, they could pressure face. They could also maybe put a lot on Jozu. I was going to say they could put like 2 on Jozu and then put the rest on as well. Actually, they could just go really hard here. I think they should have just swung Jozu, to be quite honest. Yeah, right now they're slowing down. We're able to answer their board. We got rid of the Jinbeis. We slowed down their aggression very heavily here, which is very nice. So let's go ahead and continue to pressure their face. Let's go ahead and just get the 2K out of hand. Going 5 to 4 is better than going 5 to 5, and it gets a body off the field. And then pressure Yamato, so go 9, 9. They might counter out of this one, I would imagine. They do counter out of this one. And I think putting them to 0 is better than healing with the Katakuri. Because I could put the Jozu back into the life. But I could also just play this ace and then not heal and swing. I think that's a better play here because it puts them at 0. We're at 2 life. They don't have enough bodies to be able to lethal us this next turn and also protect themselves. So yeah, that was a good way to do it. They even had Kaido ready to go. That's pretty interesting. They had everything they needed. So wow. So after playing in the sim with this deck list and all the practice I've done outside of that, I still think that this is probably the best version of this deck for now. The things I talked about at the beginning of the video, you could definitely make arguments for. Like the Kuzan is one that I've seen pop up more often and is not bad. I definitely like it in some scenarios, but I think I like 2 Nico Robin here as a nice way to fill out that 6 cost spot while having counter on it. The trigger's not really important. I think Amru having 1 of is always very nice to at least know it's in the deck, and there's chances of drawing into it to go for lethal or like rest a Burgess or whatever it may be. Overall, though, the core of the deck kind of remains the same, but the way that you play it definitely differs from different metas. It's not as easy as it used to be. You definitely have to think a little bit more about when you should counter out. You have to be a lot more careful of when your opponent can really pressure you to 0 or might have a threat that could cause the game to go into a spiral. So Enel's definitely in an interesting spot where I think it's better than people are giving it credit for. I think a lot of people just like to hate on Enel, but I think this leader is still very good, especially into a Dofi-centric meta. This leader should, in theory, thrive. I think a lot of people like to play with the newer decks or play the best deck in format, and so I think that's why we don't see nearly as many Enel. If somebody wants to put the practice in for this deck, I could see it doing very well. I could see it doing very well at tournaments, regionals, whatever it may be. I don't know when that season starts up because I know we have Nats coming up at the time of this recording. I think it's next week. So it'd be interesting to see what the meta call is there. I think a lot of people are going to be playing blue Doflamingo. Maybe there's some Enels out there, who knows. But if you decide to take it into a Dofi-centric meta, you'll probably do very well. Anyway, appreciate you guys watching as always. Happy New Year to everyone out there. Thank you so much for all the support, and I'll see you guys in the next video.